Imagine this. You wake up, and you already know what you are eating for breakfast. Same thing you had yesterday, same thing you will have tomorrow. Oatmeal, black coffee, maybe a banana. No thought required, no decision fatigue, just routine. To most people, this sounds like torture. Like living in a loop where flavor died. But for some people, this is not restriction. This is freedom. And the psychology behind it is way more complex than you think. This is called food monotony. And it is not just about being boring or lazy. It is a deliberate mental strategy that some of the most successful, creative, and disciplined people on earth use to survive the chaos of modern life. So why do people eat the same food every day? What is their brain doing that yours is not? And what happens when this habit stops being helpful and starts becoming a cage? Let us start with the most obvious reason. Decision fatigue. Your brain makes thousands of decisions every single day. What to wear, what to say in that email, whether to respond to that text. Should you go to the gym or skip it? Each one burns a tiny bit of mental energy. And by the time you get to the question of what to eat, your brain is already running on fumes. So some people just remove the question entirely. They automate it. Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day for this exact reason. Barack Obama only wore gray or blue suits. And you know what they said? It freed up mental space for the decisions that actually mattered. When you eat the same meal every day, you are not being boring. You are being efficient. You are treating your willpower like a non-renewable resource. Studies show that people who have to make too many small decisions throughout the day perform worse on tasks that require focus and self-control later. This is why people who meal prep the same thing all week often report feeling more productive. Not because the food is magic, but because they are not wasting cognitive energy wondering what lunch should be. But here is where it gets deeper. For some people, eating the same food is not about efficiency. It is about control. And control, in a world that feels increasingly chaotic, is one of the most underrated psychological needs we have. Think about it. You cannot control your boss. You cannot control the economy. You cannot control whether people like you or not. But you can control what goes into your body. You can control the exact macros, the exact timing, the exact routine, and when everything else in life feels unstable, that consistency becomes an anchor. This is especially true for people with anxiety. Anxiety thrives in uncertainty. It feeds on the unknown. So when someone with anxiety eats the same meal every day, they are creating a pocket of predictability in an unpredictable world. It is not about the food. It is about the certainty. The brain stops scanning for threats in that one small area of life. And that relief, even if temporary, can feel like oxygen. But this can also go too far. Because the line between healthy routine and obsessive rigidity is thinner than people think. When eating the same food becomes less about ease and more about fear of deviation, that is when it crosses into disordered territory. That is when the brain starts equating safety with sameness, and anything outside the routine feels dangerous. People with orthorexia, an obsession with eating only pure or healthy foods, often fall into this trap. They start with good intentions, clean eating, discipline, structure. But over time, the structure becomes a prison. They cannot eat at restaurants. They panic if their meal is not exactly right. The routine that once gave them control now controls them. And the scariest part, they do not always realize it is happening, because from the inside, it still feels like discipline. It still feels like they are doing the right thing. But the body knows. The body always knows. It shows up as irritability, as obsessive thoughts about food, as a quiet, gnawing isolation because you cannot participate in normal social eating anymore. So how do you know if your food routine is healthy or harmful? Ask yourself this. Can you break the routine without anxiety? Can you eat something different without your brain spiraling? If the answer is no, that is your sign. The routine is no longer serving you. You are serving it. Now, let us talk about the people on the opposite end. The ones who eat the same food, not out of control or efficiency, but out of pure sensory preference. These are often people on the autism spectrum or people with RFID, which stands for Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder. For them, food is not just taste, it is texture, it is temperature, it is predictability in a sensory world that is often overwhelming. A person with ARFID might eat chicken nuggets and fries every single day, not because they are picky, in the stubborn sense, but because their nervous system genuinely cannot tolerate the unpredictability of new foods. Their brain is wired differently. New textures can feel like sandpaper. Unfamiliar smells can trigger nausea. The act of trying something new is not an adventure. It is a threat. And when the rest of the world does not understand this, these people are often shamed, called childish, told to just try it. But you cannot logic your way out of a nervous system response. This is why so many adults with ARFID describe feeling broken. They want to enjoy food the way other people do. They want to go to dinner parties and not feel like an outsider. They want to look at a menu and feel excitement instead of panic. They want to taste something new without their throat closing up or their stomach turning over. But their brain and body will not cooperate. For people with avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, food is not just food. It is a minefield of textures, smells, and tastes that can trigger genuine distress. The avocado that looks fine to you might feel like slime to them. The smell of onions cooking might make them nauseous. The crunch of a vegetable might set off alarm bells in their nervous system that scream danger, even when there is no rational threat. So they stick to what feels safe. And that safety, for them, is not optional. It is survival. It is the difference between eating and not eating. Between nourishing their body and going hungry. Between functioning in the world and shutting down completely. When you understand this, you stop seeing their food choices as pickiness or stubbornness. You start seeing them as adaptive strategies from a nervous system that is doing its best to keep them alive. Then there are the people who eat the same food for purely practical reasons. Athletes training for competition, bodybuilders sculpting their physiques, people managing chronic health conditions through careful nutrition, individuals trying to hit specific health goals with precision. For them, food is fuel. It is not entertainment. It is not emotional comfort. It is not a reward or punishment. It is just data. Protein to build muscle, carbs to fuel performance, fats to support hormone function, calories to maintain energy balance. They have a goal, and food is the tool to get there. And honestly, there is something almost meditative about that approach. When you remove the emotional weight from eating, food stops being a source of stress. You are not wondering if you are eating too much or too little. You are not guilt-tripping yourself over dessert. You are not falling into the trap of labeling foods as good or bad, healthy or sinful. You just eat what you planned, move on with your day, and focus on the things that actually matter to you. Your training, your work, your relationships, your purpose. This approach frees up enormous amounts of mental energy. Think about how many decisions the average person makes about food each day. What to eat for breakfast. Whether to pack lunch or buy it. What to order from the menu. Whether to have dessert. Whether that dessert will ruin their diet. Whether they should feel guilty about it. For someone who eats the same meals consistently, all of that noise disappears. They have already made the decision once, and now they simply execute it. But even this has a shadow side. Because when food becomes purely mechanical, you can lose touch with hunger cues, with pleasure, with the social and cultural role that food plays in human connection. You stop tasting, you stop enjoying. You stop noticing the ritual of a shared meal or the comfort of a favorite dish made with love. And eventually, eating feels like checking a box instead of nourishing a body. It becomes a chore, a task to complete, something to get through rather than something to experience. You might find yourself eating at your desk without looking up, consuming your meal while scrolling through your phone, barely registering what you are putting in your mouth. Going through the motions so automatically that you cannot even remember if you ate lunch or what it tasted like. And while this efficiency might serve you in the short term, in the long term it can disconnect you from one of the most fundamental human experiences, the pleasure and presence of eating. The truth is, food monotony works until it does not. And the people who do it best are the ones who stay aware of why they are doing it. They check in with themselves regularly. They make sure the routine is still serving them, and not the other way around. They notice when the habit that once felt liberating starts to feel constraining. When the structure that once provided freedom starts to feel like a prison. Because here is the thing. Routine is not the enemy. Routine is one of the most powerful tools the human brain has for managing complexity. Routine conserves decision-making energy. It reduces cognitive load. It creates predictability in a chaotic world. It allows you to automate the small things so you can focus your attention on what truly matters. But routine without reflection becomes rigidity. And rigidity without flexibility becomes a trap. It becomes the thing you serve instead of the thing that serves you. So what is the psychological sweet spot? It is this. Eat the same meals when it helps you. When it saves you energy. When it keeps you aligned with your goals. When it removes unnecessary stress from your day. But stay flexible enough to break the pattern without fear. Stay connected enough to your body to know when the routine is helping and when it is hurting. Stay present enough to recognize when you are choosing the routine consciously versus when the routine is choosing you. Some of the healthiest people I know eat the same breakfast and lunch every single day. Oatmeal and berries at 7 in the morning. A chicken and rice bowl at noon. These meals are consistent, nourishing and completely automated. But dinner is different. Dinner is social. Dinner is where they let the routine go and reconnect with spontaneity. That is where they try new restaurants, cook experimental recipes, share meals with friends and family, or simply eat whatever sounds good in the moment. That balance, that ability to hold structure and flexibility at the same time, is what separates healthy discipline from compulsive control. It is the difference between using routine as a foundation and being trapped by it. It is the difference between eating the same breakfast because it works and eating the same breakfast because you are terrified of what happens if you do not. And if you are someone who eats the same food every day, ask yourself these questions. Does this routine give me energy or drain me? Does it free up mental space or create mental walls? Can I deviate from it without feeling anxious? Am I eating this way because it serves my goals, or because I am afraid of what happens if I do not? Do I feel empowered by this choice or controlled by it? Would I be okay if my usual food was not available tomorrow? Can I still enjoy a meal that is different from my norm? Your answers will tell you everything. They will reveal whether you are using food monotony as a tool or whether it is using you. Whether you are the architect of your routine or its prisoner. Whether you have created a helpful structure or an inflexible cage. Because eating the same food every day is not inherently good or bad, it is neutral. It is a tool, and like any tool, it can build you up or lock you down depending on how you use it. A hammer can construct a home or break a window. The tool itself is not the problem. The problem is how we wield it, and why. The people who thrive with food monotony are the ones who understand this fundamental truth. They use repetition as a foundation, not a cage. They automate the small stuff so they can focus on the big stuff. They create pockets of predictability so they can handle the unpredictability everywhere else. They know that having 3 meals on autopilot means they have more energy for their creative projects, their relationships, their work, their passions. But they also know when to let go. They know that life is not meant to be controlled into submission. That sometimes the best meals are the ones you did not plan. The spontaneous dinner invitation. The hole-in-the-wall restaurant you stumbled upon. The experimental dish that surprised your palate. The family recipe made with love. They understand that connection and spontaneity and joy matter just as much as discipline and structure. Maybe even more. So if you eat the same food every day, own it. Understand it. Make sure it is working for you. Examine your relationship with it, honestly. And if it stops working, be brave enough to change it. Be willing to adapt. Be open to evolution. Your needs today might not be your needs tomorrow. And that is okay. Because the goal is not perfection. The goal is not to eliminate all chaos from your life. The goal is not to control every variable or optimize every moment. The goal is to build a life where you feel grounded enough to handle the chaos when it comes. Where you have enough stability to weather the storms. Where you have created enough predictability that uncertainty does not destroy you. And sometimes, that starts with something as simple as knowing what you are having for breakfast. Not because you are scared of anything else. Not because you cannot handle variety. Not because you are rigid, or boring, or broken. But because you chose it. Because it serves you. Because it works. And that choice, that intentionality, is where all real power lives. That is where freedom actually exists, in the space between mindless chaos and rigid control. This is food monotony. This is the psychology of people who eat the same thing every day. And now you know it is not about the food at all. It is about the brain trying to survive, trying to focus, trying to conserve energy for what matters, trying to feel safe in a world that rarely feels that way, trying to create islands of certainty in an ocean of unpredictability. And whether you are someone who eats the same meal every day, or someone who needs variety to feel alive, the lesson is the same. Know yourself, know why you do what you do, and make sure your habits are serving the life you actually want to live. Make sure you are choosing your patterns, not just repeating them unconsciously. Because routine without awareness is just autopilot, and autopilot is not living. It is just not crashing. It is existing without experiencing. Moving through your days without actually being present in them. Going through the motions without feeling the motion. And you deserve more than that. You deserve more than that. You deserve a relationship with food, and with yourself, that is both stable and free. Both structured and spontaneous. Both intentional and alive. Both grounded and flexible. You deserve to eat in a way that nourishes not just your body but your soul, your relationships, your sense of joy and presence. And that balance. That is not something you find lying around. It is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is something you build. One meal at a time. One choice at a time. One honest moment of self-reflection at a time. One decision to check in with yourself and ask if this is still working. One courageous moment of changing course when it is not. So the next time someone judges you for eating the same thing every day, or the next time you judge yourself for needing variety, remember this: there is no right way. There is only your way. And as long as your way is helping you show up as the person you want to be, as long as it is serving your health and happiness and goals, as long as it is a conscious choice rather than an unconscious prison, you are doing it right.